What's going on, guys? This is Lior and welcome back to my channel. Now in this video, I'm here on a site where we just demoed an old house. We're finishing up excavation, but what I thought I would do in this particular video is give you guys some of the processes and things that we think about as we start our initial demo and then site work process, right? So there's a lot of different things between the actual site work and foundation work. And then there's also a lot of future planning we have to do at this stage in order to build a custom single family that's going on this lot. It's gonna be an 8,000 square foot home. It's gonna be beautiful, custom, huge, of course. But there's a lot of details that we need to start thinking through and planning at this point of the project. So I'm gonna give you guys an overview of exactly what's going on site. What are the things we have to think about at this stage of our project? So let's get at it. So let's start off with excavation, right? Excavation itself is not, there's not that much to it, right? We demoed the original house. There's of course plenty of paperwork, plenty of permit stuff that we have to do. But once we demo and then we were able to break ground on excavation, we have the surveyor come out and actually stake out the excavation. Then we actually perform it. There's not too much to it. The biggest risk at this point is if we find anything unexpected in the dirt, right? And so far here, it's been pretty good on this project, but there's of course been other sites we've done where we found some stuff that wasn't so great, right? We just finished up an excavation on another site here actually in Newton, where when we excavated, some of the soil that we found in the dirt was actually surprised us and was actually not very suitable for holding a foundation firmly. So what we had to do is we incurred change orders. We had to dig more than we initially planned in order to get rid of that kind of crappy soil that wasn't able to sustain our foundation, and then backfill it. And then, only then could we have poured the foundation, right? So, again, here right now, so far so good. But in general, that's the thing we look for. Is there any unexpected issues? On a previous site last year, we had a site where we found a little bit more groundwater than was expected, so we had to manage that. So that's the riskiest part, is what do we find that we didn't know about? But otherwise, from a technical and construction perspective, excavation is relatively straightforward. Now, in terms of more immediate construction planning, once we're finishing up excavation, the next thing we need to get lined up between our GC and the subcontractors is the guys doing the foundation, the footings and the foundation work, right? So at this point, we've already got quoted out several labor quotes. We're working with, again, the general contractor and the subcontractor to finalize the materials we need, again, for the footing and foundation, the concrete takeoffs, the rebar, everything that goes into a foundation. So that's kind of the next step. And then the other thing we're thinking about is we're thinking a couple of steps ahead, right? So the next thing that's gonna happen once we have our footings and foundation is, of course, we're gonna have to frame the project, right? And with framing, what we need to get ahead of is, again, labor quotes, right? So we already have selected our framer for this site. It's the same framer that we use on a lot of our different sites. And we also have to figure out the material component, right? So we're gonna work with our supply house. We're gonna give them our architectural drawings, our structural drawings. They're gonna help us spec out all the materials that we need in order to frame this house in. For this kind of house with 8,000 square feet, it's a lot of material. And again, we're gonna make our GC confirm, our framer confirm that all the materials that we need are on that order. Now, generally for single family, there's not a lot of custom material that we'll need. Most of it is relatively stock, so it's not like we have to plan with huge lead times, but it's still something we wanna iron out at this stage, just so that we're ready to roll as soon as we get through footings and foundation. Now, other materials we need to plan for that definitely do have longer lead time is siding and windows. So with siding, especially on these luxury developments, right, where we're doing super custom work, we typically work with custom siding colors, right? So we're gonna use hardy board, but we typically have some sort of combination of maybe stock colors and then custom colors, right? And with custom colors, we have to plan well in advance, because that kind of order can take anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks to fulfill, right? And again, we want to, in order to make sure that a project moves along smoothly, we got to match the timeline of the footings, the foundation, the framing, so that by the time the framing's done, that 8 to 10 week mark is gonna come up, and we're gonna have our custom material here. So we're working with our GC, with our siding contractor and our designer here to really spec out the exact details of what colors we want, what quantities do we want them in, and then when to put in that order. So we're actually, in this particular project right now, we just finalized that final design. We know exactly what kind of colors we're gonna use. We definitely are gonna have some custom colors because we really wanna make this house stand out. So we're gonna put that order in. And again, with that 8 to 10 week timeline, by the time we finish up the rest of the site work, footings, foundation, and framing, that timeline should align nicely in order to keep that project moving forward. And then same thing with windows too. You know, with windows, it's not as bad of a lead time. You know, with windows, you're typically looking about 4 to 5 weeks or so. So it's not an 8-10 week timeline. But again, we're more or less just about done with our window order here. We're having final confirmations between our contractors and GC, just like the other materials we talked about. And again, we're getting ready to place that order so that these windows come in as we're finishing up framing. And then that way the framers can continue to close up the exterior, frame it, you know, put in the windows, which will allow us then to side the house, etc., etc. Now, in addition to these next kind of construction steps that we have to plan out for, we're also really trying to finalize all of our design, right? And that design means here actual design work, right? Like kitchen design, bathroom design, but also a lot of the mechanical design, because we want to make sure that our subcontractors, our electricians, HVACs, plumbers, they are all going to have completed scope of works with all the details that we want in this custom home so that they're ready to roll, right? So for kitchens, for example, you know, it really depends on the type of home you're doing and the vendor you're gonna be using. In this particular home, because this is gonna be a home, as I step around, this is gonna be a home that's gonna sell probably in the high $3 million to $4 million price range. So again, this is gonna be a high end, very custom home. What we're doing here is we're actually working with a vendor that imports their cabinets from Italy. So what that means for us as the developers is they actually have almost a 4-month lead time. So we actually have been working with our vendor even before we broke ground to finalize the kitchen design and basically have everything ready to go so that they can press that order, because again, it's a 4-month lead time, right? And we want to make sure that there's plenty of time that the cabinets get made. They're gonna have to get shipped over from Italy over to here. So it's something that we need to make sure we get ahead of the curve. So again, as I said, in this particular case, we've already ironed out the design with our vendor. We've already selected the exact types of cabinets, the looks, all the little details. In some of our other projects where we're using local vendors, we don't typically engage them until, we're usually close to getting framed out. But again, because this is such a custom project, we needed to get well ahead of that curve. And with that being said, as we were kind of going through the kitchen design, of course, as you can imagine, that means we need to have a lot of our little details flushed out mechanically, right? So a lot of the electrical and the plumbing designs that are going around it, right? So for example, we're gonna do under cabinet lighting, we're gonna do under the island lighting. We're gonna have to figure out exactly where we're putting all of our plumbing, right? Do we want our island to have our sink and dishwasher? Do we wanna do 2 sinks potentially, right? All those little mechanical details need to get flushed out right now, again, as we're putting in all of our orders and as we're starting to prepare to put the final scope of works for all of our mechanical subcontractors. And finally, that kind of goes along with finishing the design and kitchens. Since we're doing all of our mechanical scope, again, what this entails for us is we're gonna flush out all of our mechanical scope throughout the house, all the bathrooms, right? So in this particular house, we just finished our design on the primary ensuite. We're gonna have beautiful custom backlit niches. We're gonna have very interesting light details. We're gonna have spot lighting. We're finishing up our design on things like our fireplace that's gonna have stone across the whole wall. So all of these details, like I said, are getting flushed out right now so that we're super clear about the exact kind of product we're trying to deliver. So those are the things that we think about at this early stage of a project. Again, we just demoed, finished our initial excavation. So we're thinking not only about the immediate next steps of the construction process from foundation to framing, siding, and windows, but at this point, we're also flushing out all of our interior details, Because this is such a custom home that's going to be, that's going to sell for a pretty big number, we are engaging custom vendors that have long lead times. And again, it's up to us to put all of these details together, work with all of our contractors, mechanical contractors, our GC, again, to kind of put a very tight game plan in place so we can deliver this 8,000 square foot custom single family here in Newton, Mass. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. Hopefully that gives you some deep insight about some of the planning processes that go behind the scenes on these kinds of projects. Of course, if you have any questions, make sure to reach out.